Good evening, everyone. I am Noor, and we are back on behalf of Read Pakistan with some great discussions for you all. So, without wasting any time, I will give you a quick introduction of our worthy guest. Our guest for today has been associated with the field of education for the past 15 years and has worked in various capacities. She has visited schools in Pakistan, USA, UK, as well as had a chance to closely study Singaporean and Scottish education system. She has also conducted comparative research to study the discourse practices in Pakistani schools. She's a school inspector and certified teacher educator. She got her training validation from UK as well, and she's traveled across far-flung areas of Pakistan and received scholarship to attend courses in USA and is also an MPhil gold medalist. Her research is also published in the shape of a book that is available at Amazon. So I welcome Ma'am Sadia Bashir to today's talks. Welcome to the session, ma'am. Really honored to have you with us. Read Pakistan has taken this great initiative. Would you like to share your thoughts about all these talks and about Read Pakistan?
Thank you so much, Noor. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I would really like to take the opportunity to express my thanks and appreciation to Read Pakistan team. The incredible work they are doing to revive reading culture in Pakistan is praiseworthy. And also the series of talk that they have brought to our drawing rooms and all these stimulating thoughts, and that's all really very amazing. So thank you so very much, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here and to share my thoughts. Thank you.
We're honored, ma'am. So, well, we'll move to the questions. So, as you all know, that the topic of our discussion today is related to education and quality education. So, in that perspective, I'd like to ask our ma'ams that, as quality education and education, what does it mean? Is quality education simply a status symbol, or is there really a major difference between education and quality education, and how can we determine that?
Thank you, Noor. It's a very important question. But before I just embark on the journey of unpacking this with you, I would really like to discuss a very pressing issue related to education in developing countries, and it is a significant number of children who are out of school. And Pakistan is basically hosting the largest number of out of school children. It is the second largest
Yeah,
country.
that's really sad.
So it has like around 22.8 million children who are out of school, and they age from 5 to 16 years, which actually makes 44% of the overall population of children who are in this age. And besides, there are 11.4 million adults who are not receiving formal education. So when we look at these numbers, they are so depressing. And when we look at the magnanimity of the entire situation, we realize that all the efforts that we put in to enhance the educational initiatives and to improve the quality of education in the schools and for sustainability, to meet the sustainable development goals, it all goes down the drain just because of all those large number of students who are out of school. So there are a number of factors that contribute to it. There are host many reasons in different developing countries. There are different set of reasons for that. However, we need a change at the systemic level, at the government level. There is a need to develop capacity, robust processes and procedures to identify the gaps and then to enhance the service of provision. When we say service of provision, it is actually availability of the infrastructure and schools. Because if we were going to drive all those 22.8 million students to the schools, we need schools for that. We need teachers for that. So setting achievable goals and targets, funds, and then robust implementation programs. They are very important to draw these children to the school. And also primary and secondary education must be free if we want to improve the situation. We have to provide education at the doorstep, specifically for the girls. So, I like, for example, if someone has to send their girl child to the school, which is 5 distance, that parent is very likely to think, according to the general socio-cultural structure here, that parent might not send, but if the school is there in the local and immediate community, there are lots of chances
That
that
they're going to send.
parent might send the child to this school. So therefore, we have to enhance accessibility in terms of infrastructure and in terms of providing the educational facility to the doorstep, and then taking the parent community on board, talking out, reaching out to the people, and raising that awareness. So that is very important. Next, when as coming back to your question, that is related to quality education. Whenever we talk about education, let me tell you, quality is something that is at the heart of education. Uh, when we talk about that everybody has a right to education, it is basically right to quality education. So it is also part of
Okay.
the Human Rights Charter, and every child is born with that right, regardless of their age, their ethnicity, their gender, their socioeconomic backgrounds, foremost their disabilities. Everybody has the right to be part of the mainstream education system, and it is the government that has to ensure that for the children. The education has to be outcome based. Whenever we plan, the planners and implementers have to sit together on the same table. They have to see what the end product would be. Like after completing X many years in a school or in an educational institution, what would be the end result? Like would the citizen, the end product, the child would be a productive citizen, right? So all this has to be taken into account.
Into consideration.
There Exactly. There are many factors that determine the quality of education, as accessibility we have already discussed. Besides that, there is curriculum, there is assessment, there is overall learning environment, and but one main factor is the quality of teachers. You see, the quality of in any institution, the quality of teachers determines the success of that institution. Uh, if we are investing in the teachers, we are actually investing in the
In
education.
our future.
We
You're
have to
right.
have some very strong, exactly, we have to have some very strong structural pathways for our teachers. And they have to be chalked out, and then we have to present it to the teachers, and we have to encourage them to go through that, because it is only if we will going to invest in teachers, we will be able to enhance the quality of education in our institutions. Uh, we have to create something that's called professional communities. There has to be a support structure, specifically, like, for example, if a new teacher is appointed, she really doesn't know what to do. And whatever she does is hit and trial. She really doesn't
That's
know
true.
where to go, where to seek support.
Mm-hmm.
The internal environment and culture of the school, mostly in schools, is that maybe the person is left on their own to experiment, but there has to be some kind of support structure for that. But whenever we conduct the teacher training sessions, we conduct the professional development sessions, clubbed with it is another concept of follow-up. Like, training is conducted, but then we do not have to leave it as it is. Then there has to be some follow-up on that. Like, are teachers implementing all that training in their classrooms? If yes, then what result is it producing? What kind of impact it has created on the teaching and learning practices, how to further improve that experience for the teachers and the learner. So there is a dire need of instituting an entire training culture in our education systems, and that has to be on the sustained basis. It shouldn't be a sporadic activity, rather a sustained activity. And then, like, whenever we talk about professional development and this, we should also talk about the concept of teacher leadership within that, because we have to empower our teachers. We have to give them this empowerment that yes, they are leaders within their own capacities. They can bring change. they can create that impact, because teachers in Pakistan are incredible. If you just go across the length and breadth of the country, you will going to find out that so motivated, they're so enthusiastic to bring change, that it's heartening to see them, to talk to them. But unfortunately, the support plan for those teachers is missing somewhat, and we need to work for that.
Okay. Okay, that was really nicely summed up. You talked about the availability of colleges and schools, and you feel that quality education can be provided if there are more and more schools and more access to, education. If are the number of schools are increased, do you really feel that if increasing the number of schools in the localities can improve the education? But there were really other points as well, that we need to train our teachers, and you talked about other important factors, how new teachers do not have to go through trial and error with proper trainings. So that was really really nice suggestions. But what is the yardstick on which we can determine what is or what is not a quality education?
Thank you for asking this question. Actually, there are two ways, Noor, through which we gauge that. Number one is quantitative education targets, and other are qualitative education targets. So far,
Okay.
gauging quantitative educational targets is concerned, if we study the reports, international reports from the developing countries, we find out that there is some progress over the years in enhancing the quantitative educational targets. But if we talk about qualitative educational targets, that's an area of concern. Let me give you just a small example. Like, for example, if a child goes to the school, and even after spending 2 to 3 years in the school, the child is not able to read or do basic math. Because if you just see the overall three important, though there are many, but important essential 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic, or you can call it as literacy, numeracy. If the child is not even
Mhm.
able to do that, then there's a big question mark on of that child being there, because it would then again, all the efforts of drawing children back to school would go down the drain. Reason because they won't find any significance in that. If quality of education there is poor, and they do not find it stimulating enough, they won't find any significance in that. They won't know how would it help them in future. And if they would keep on struggling, that would be one of, again, one of the causes of so that would be one of the major causes of the dropouts. So if we generally talk about the targets, there are so gauging the targets, qualitative targets, there are so many. But if I just sum them up due to shortage of time, if I just reflect upon the 7 key targets or indicators, the foremost would be the assessment system. The entire assessment system needs to be revamped, because the assessment system basically determines the core of all the educational practices. Even if we take example of our own country, the standardized education system determines how education would look like and what kind of the end product would be there in the market. So benchmarks assessment system would help us to improve. It shouldn't be a snapshot test. When I say snapshot test, it is actually that 3 hours pen and paper exam that students take. There is no one size fits all model. If you read all the researchers, you are going to find out learning has to be personalized. Everybody cannot be measured with the same yardstick, because everybody has their unique abilities, they have their own talents. So therefore, actually, we cannot measure their talents through any kind of yardstick, and everybody, that too, on the same scale. Uh, we have to do away with the grading system. It seems very, very horrifying to some teachers as well, and also to parents, but it is the fact. We cannot put number tags on students and then equip them with the right skills. The purpose of assessment solely is supportive, is to support the learning process. Here it is other way around. the entire education is actually designed keeping in view that the child has to get 10 out of 10 marks, has to get a star, etc. But the point is, nobody is talking about skills. Nobody is talking about what actually the child wants to learn, and has he gauged that particular expertise according to his or her aptitude. That is the area that is missing. We have to actually personalize the learning experience for the children, and that would only happen when we will going to change the assessment system. If we talk about personalized learning, if we talk about changing the assessment systems, if we talk about promoting continuous assessment system where the child's progress is recorded over the year or over a certain period of time rather than a snapshot test, as I said earlier, for that your teacher has to be very much trained. Your teacher has to be equipped. So again, it goes back to the very same thing that we were discussing, that we have for quality education, we would have to invest in our teachers. That is very important. So that was the first factor, which is assessment. Second is
Okay.
curriculum. Though assessment is part of
Okay.
curriculum, but generally, if we're going to look at the curriculum, it's an architectural term. Uh,
Okay.
Curriculum, but if I just sum up, or if I just focus on one thing that is more relevant here, it is that it has to be skill-based curriculum. uh, there are
Right.
21st century skills, and it's really very funny that we talk about 21st century skills as if the 21st century has to come. We are already there. It's 20 years have passed, but still, unfortunately, our education system is outdated. It is based on 19th century teaching and learning method. So
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
21st century learning skills requirements, the curriculum has to fulfill that. For fulfilling that, your teacher will going to translate that curriculum for the students, and
Mm-hmm.
then again, teacher training once again, and then that curriculum should be broad based enough to prepare the children for the future job market. And about the future job market, something very incredible about the job market is that nobody knows how it would look like we even don't know how it would look like after 5 years, what to talk about a decade or so, when when these learners who have been admitted today in the schools would be part of the job market. So we want to actually, we should be actually preparing the children in a way that they are able to adapt to the new environments, to the new job situations that they would be facing in the future. They should be creative, imaginative, they should be problem solvers, they should seek innovative solutions to the problem. They have digital literacy skills, they are lifelong learners. And you see, how does it happen? It would only happen when there would be a massive reform at all the levels, at all the tiers. Because when your instruction within a classroom teaches a child to write the answer which is written on the board,
Mm-hmm.
then the child, his entire or her entire life would keep on doing that. They would always be looking up to someone to tell them what to do, because
What
this
to
is
do?
how they have been trained to look up to someone for the answers, to look up to someone to tell them or give them the solutions. Rather, you have to give them these skills that they become lifelong learners, and then they are able to find out solutions for themselves. They take on that leadership role, and then they are there to come up with innovative solutions that their immediate communities are facing, that the country is facing, that overall the world is facing. They become part
Very true.
of that
Exactly.
world, because world is very much interdependent nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
We are not living there like it's not that we are just living in confined boundaries anymore. So
Very
specifically,
true.
we have
Yes.
seen it now in the recent, due to this COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen that. And it has also proved that how much interdependent this world is. So we have to prepare children for that. Next comes the third point is autonomy. We have to empower our schools. When we will going to empower our schools, when we will going to make them part of the development process at the policy level, at the implementation level, there would be more ownership. They would start owning up things, and then they would just buy in that concept, and they would be part of that. Uh, and along with that, there's another concept, which is accountability. So the schools should be responsible for the improvement of the learning environment and then outcomes for the students. So there has to be accountability. And then again, I would repeat teacher development and retention. Proper structural plans for the teachers and then measures to retain them so that they feel important, they feel valued, and then there is some sense of achievement that yes, we are doing something, we are part of a process, and then we are doing something incredible. Sixth is focus on early years education. Why? Because that is the time when that the child mind is working very fast and the child is receiving multiple stimuli from the environment. So therefore, we have to have a very elaborate yet very strong research-based early years education program with properly trained teachers who exactly know how to handle children of this age. And then number seven, it would be improving the overall culture of, of the institution, of the school systems. Uh, Proper values-based system where there is focus on character building, where there is focus on holistic development. There is not only one thing that is academics. That is just one part of the learning process. Overall, it is students' intellectual, students' physical, students' emotional, and spiritual well-being. There were many students, for example, who are not actually academically weak, but they do not perform well in assessments or in overall classrooms. They do not participate. The reason is there are multiple emotional reasons due to which they do that. But the teachers do have a way, many teachers who are not trained, who themselves are struggling. They just put them in one category of struggling learners, maybe intellectually. There's so many names that we use for that. They're low readiness learners, etc. But actual reason is not that. Reason is something else that's emotional. So teachers have to have those skills so that they can rightly identify that what's wrong with the child. How can I help and support that child? Rather than just trying to make a small cost system within the classes in which you have got gifted students and then you have got, average students, and then you say that you have got struggling learners and etc. So we do not have to create that. Everybody is a learner. Everybody has their own pace of learning.
Everybody has to learn
So therefore,
at their own
these are the
capacity.
areas that we
Exactly.
need to focus on.
Yes, very true. You like very nicely talked about all of the things that need to be addressed in this regard. This, especially the thing that the suggestion I'd say that I liked the most was about the skill-based learning. That when we come out of schools or colleges or universities, we should be trained to apply that, and we should know what to do next. We should not be needing somebody to tell us that you have to do this, you have to do that. So it should be based, our training should be based in a way that we have to take leadership roles next. So you're very right about all of the things that you mentioned, and now we see that education is something which might give you knowledge, but it doesn't give you skill. But quality education is something which makes you knowledgeable as well as skilled, and as well as give you leadership capacities and make you independent. So there is a great big difference between education and quality education, which was so nicely explained by you. Thank you very much. The next question that I'd like to ask is that redefining education. It's like something we've been hearing as a phrase, redefining education. But we redefine something only when it is flawed, when we see something that is wrong in its present form or state. So education as a word itself, or quality education in a word itself, should encompass everything already. So, what do you think has changed which requires us to redefine this term education, if you think that it needs to be redefined at all?
Uh, uh, no, let me tell you, I think that everything has to be reformed. Everything. The reason is that we are living in such a fast-paced world. I see that Earth has never seen such a fast-paced technological advancement before that we see right now. And if you see that you see Overall, there are lots of things that you have to keep in mind when you are redefining education. It is number one, the future job market that you have to keep in mind. You have to keep the socio-economic structure and development in mind. We see that right now, digital or virtual world runs in parallel to the real world, but also it is now seamlessly merging into our day-to-day lives and professions. So the education system, as I earlier said, is outdated. It is based on the requirements of 19th century job market. This has to change sooner than later. And everything that I have talked about earlier, that all
Mm-hmm.
has to be changed. But when we say change,
Right.
that is a progressive process. It cannot happen overnight, but at least we have to start doing that. And the very first thing is that even we nowadays we hear a lot about a unified curriculum, single national curriculum, its implementation. Even we look if look at the past education policies, if you look at the curriculum, recent curriculum, the earlier curriculum, let me tell you that dissemination of these documents is far more
Mm-hmm.
bigger a concern than its development. I understand being also at the part of the development, it takes lots and lots of, you have to burn actually midnight oil to do that. But again, if it does not reach out to the user, it's of no use. I conducted a research like a few years ago, and I just interviewed a lot of teachers, and the findings were that almost 90% of the teachers never knew, they said that they never knew there is any kind of document that's called national curriculum, there is any national education policy. If at all it is, they had never read that. So you
Oh.
see all that happening, developmental work at one side
Mm-hmm.
and the implementers on the other side with this huge implementation gap, this huge communication gap between both. We actually cannot bring the result. Result would not be pronounced. It won't have any impact when all these uh, developmental endeavors reach out to the users. So we have to see that how we can make that dissemination process fast and then also more effective. That is something very important. Those teachers who had never read these documents, their teaching and learning was confined to the textbook only and four walls of the classrooms. For them, that was teaching. They considered textbook as a curriculum, whereas curriculum is an architectural term. It is not confined by a textbook. That's just a learning aid. That's just a tool that you can use. So therefore, there are many things, but we can start off with this one, which is very important. Uh, Government has done a lot of work, but these documents would keep on gathering dust in the shelves if they do not reach out to the users. They would just be dead documents. Though a lot of work has been done, and then there are very good documents, but if implemented, then we will going to see results. We don't see any results because
Exactly.
the user exactly has no access to these, or rather doesn't know that has to access their teacher performance standards, for example. And then many of those teachers, and I conducted my research, they had no knowledge about that. So for whom were those performance standards created? Because teachers never access them. They never see that, okay, this is what is required of me, these are the standards that I have to meet. So you see, these are the things that really need our attention.
Really, really true. You're absolutely right about all of these things. So, like, it's really surprising about the things that curriculum is not known to most people, and then they are in this profession, but they don't know the requirements, and it's like really important that all of these documents, all of these things uh, uh, that are there should be implemented. Otherwise, there is no use of them. You're absolutely correct about that. So you have a diverse background, and you've visited schools in Pakistan, UK, USA, as well as you got a chance to closely study Singaporean and Scottish education system, right? So how would you rate them and compare them with each other, and then compare them with our education system? Would you like to do that?
Like you see, There are many differences, but obviously there are certain reasons behind that, and there's number of reasons, though it's very hard to actually put it in a nutshell. But yet we have hosted also many teachers, and they have visited Pakistan, and it's really very heartening to learn from them when they talk about. They say that we are very impressed with the discipline in your schools. So, but when we study their education systems, uh, if I just pick out one thing, it would be teacher selection process. There are proper registration numbers that are given to the teachers. They have license to teach, and then their license is properly renewed if they have attended X many hours of professional development. So therefore, only those teachers can go and teach who have proper degrees in education, and then they have the registration and license. Second is the overall professional development culture there, and the professional development. They have lots of professional development communities there. Teachers reach out to each other. They talk to each other within the classroom school settings. There are lots of dialogue. Teachers discussing that how that that teacher coordination is there, and it's a lot. Like, you often see teachers engaged in such a dialogue in helping others improve each other's lesson plans, devising strategies, activities, etc. And also there are formal support plans for the struggling learners. If a child is not catching up with the rest of the students, they do have proper support plan for the children. Rather than leaving those children to deciding their own fate, they are given proper support, and they are helped to catch up with rest of the class, or maybe they're helped in so many other ways. So there is a support system there. Also, another thing that I would like to talk about that I've seen there, it is their national evaluation system, through which standard of quality is ensured and maintained. Notwithstanding this fact that obviously there have been many talks there as well that the entire role of the evaluation should be of coaching, rather than, because evaluation or inspection is a term that is a little bit threatening to people. But actually, if you look at its real purpose, it is of coaching. So therefore, people understand the importance of that, and then they try to improve their school learning environments themselves through a set standard of framework that is there, that is with them. I will just give you one example. Like, when Scotland was trying to revamp its entire curriculum, they called it curriculum for excellence. They were implementing that. I got a chance to be there at that time, and then I spoke to the teachers, and I was very impressed that each and every teacher knew what that is, what curriculum excellence is, what are the major objectives, why are we revamping our curriculum, why should we do that, why is it important, how would it help me as a teacher and my learner, how would I support my learners. So all this, the teachers were very much clear, and I was really amazed at this, that if one step has been taken at the government level and then at the education department level, it has reached out to each and every teacher, and everybody was there trying to present it as if they were an active participant of that development process. So that was very incredible that I saw that. Then there are so many other examples, though time is short. But in one of the schools of US, I just got a chance to see the differentiated instruction being practiced. Like, every child was given a personalized learning experience. For that, you need highly trained teachers who exactly know that how to give that personalized learning experience, and then how to design assessments accordingly, and then how to gauge progress of the child, how to make their progress dossiers and portfolios, etc. Again, one more thing that I would like to mention here that was very different when I went to US. I saw their implementation of backward curriculum design model for designing the curriculum and education. And teachers were so trained that they themselves were designing that. They had the objectives in front of them. They exactly knew that what assessment is required to gauge those objectives, and then they would work out the entire methodology. So that was very interesting to look at those teachers, they were scientifically working on that process. So that was very nice. So there are so many things. Obviously, they are also struggling to change. There's rote learning in their schools as well. Rote learning in a way that traditional teaching, not precisely the rote learning, but traditional teaching. You also see teacher-centered classrooms there. They are also trying and working on this area that differentiated instruction is very challenging, but they're also trying to implement that. And we should also try to look at that model and see how we can adapt that.
Okay, that was pretty nicely summed up all of your experiences about all of the foreign countries that you visited. So, you're also a school inspector. What do you feel are the flaws, other than those you've already mentioned? You've pretty much summed up everything and everything that you feel, but still, if there is something that is left, what are those flaws and who needs to address them?
No, that's a complicated question, but actually, number one is the absence of an inspection framework at the national level.
Okay.
If at all
Yeah,
something exists, then
absolutely.
it's implementation.
It's not
How would it
implemented.
happen? How would it
Right.
happen? Who would do that? At what intervals would it be done?
Nobody
To
would.
whom it would be reported? After that, what kind of changes would be made based on the inspection reports that would be generated? Because curriculum for excellence in Scotland was actually revamped based on the inspection reports. The entire education system was revamped. So
Hmm.
therefore, here, how would that happen? Number one is that, and number two is that if at all inspection exists in one or the other way, then it is that I feel personally, it is that the authority that this word gives to you, it actually not at all meant to put you at a superior position at all, because you work with the evaluator. You as an evaluator, you work with the evaluatee as a team. You together look at the teaching and learning practice, and you together engage in a professional dialogue, and then teacher herself decides. You are just at the mentorship capacity, and the teacher decides that, okay, how can I enhance my pedagogical practice? How can I enhance my instructional practice? She comes up with a plan. When she comes up with a plan herself, there is more ownership to that, rather than somebody
Hmm.
coming barging into your class and telling you that, oh, that is
And
right
telling
and
you what
that's
to
wrong.
do.
That
Right.
would that won't actually change anything at all. You need to sit, you need to talk, you need to discuss, because what's the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is that we have to help that child who sits in the class. We
Hmm.
have to provide that
Absolutely.
child with the best learning experience. So the inspector and the evaluatee both have to sit together and look at the instructional practice from the improvement point. What is best? What is the best practice? How could we just share it across the board? If there is one teacher who's doing a wonderful job, and in the very next class there is a teacher who is struggling with that concept, so this should not happen. There has to be more teacher to teacher talk, teacher to teacher
Exactly.
coordination, teacher talking to each others, learning from each others. So those small little professional communities within the schools, this will going to lift up the educational structure, and it will going to enhance
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. That was all about, school and secondary school education. But as far as higher education is concerned, you have, the experience of taking courses in USA as well as in UK and in Pakistan. So, as far as university education is concerned, what comparisons can you draw? Like you drew all of these comparisons related to school education. So, about universities, are they up to the mark in Pakistan, or do they need to address some issues as well?
Um, if I just talk about one thing, that is quality of research.
Okay.
The quality of research that is produced in those countries is far, far better. Reason being that students are trained from the very early age to write. They do not find it
Okay.
difficult to
Mm-hmm.
write something. Many students, not obviously there are exceptions. There will be many students who will be struggling, but generally students, they do that, and then they're trained in a way that they have to produce their own material. Even if they're reading something, then they try to write it in their own words. But a little copy paste culture that exists here and there, that has to be discouraged.
Okay.
There has
Hmm.
to be proper education about using the material that we find on internet or in the libraries,
Hmm.
respecting that
Absolutely.
material, respecting the intellectual property rights. And then students, you see, like even when I was doing my research, my supervisor told me one thing, and then she said that, like, see, if you have to write one page, uh, you have to read, but in order to write a good research paper, your reading has to be extensive. You have to go to the libraries. You have to actually go in depth into that topic and then try to. And then after that, it's not only confined to the university students, even the teachers in the schools. They over there, they conduct a lot of teacher researches. They write a lot, and I have seen this thing there that teachers, they are writing papers, they are researching. Even if it's a one child, that is the sample, they are trying to implement strategies, and then they are publishing the result for others to see, to adapt, to learn from them. So there's lots of culture there. The teachers are conducting a teacher research, action researches are carried out, and they are published. Teachers are writing blogs. Teachers are into doing so many things. There, if you talk about higher education, then again there is that, like, they've expanded the fields. This is what I believe. There are lots of disciplines. There are lots of choices for the students to opt. There are student loans. There are so many other facilities. And besides that, one thing that I really appreciate is that it is also implemented here in many universities now. It is the community work that students have to do. You see, because if they are doing something, then they have to give back to the society. They have to have this empathy in them, that they have to give back something. So they are engaged in the community service projects. There are certified projects. There are X many hours of community work, and it is even applicable to the professionals. Even if you apply for the jobs there, you have to write that, okay, I have done this, these a community service I have done. So that is very important. That culture is there. That is very much there. And we also have to institute this culture right from the preschool level to the middle to the senior, and then up to the higher level. That has to be done so that we can generate empathy in students, because empathy is where this is something we are lacking. A value system that is deteriorating. So therefore, the researchers show that best values are learned or transferred through families, through the family system. But then also school is another place from where we can transfer those values. We can build ideologies. We can give students that set of ideologies and values that are very, very important for them to thrive as human beings in the interdependent world, feel for each other, tolerance. You see, all these values are indeed important, and they are inculcated just not by telling them that that is important. You just help the child go through that process, himself or herself experience that, so that the child internalizes the value and see why it is important. So that is something I think so that needs to be made part of the formal schooling.
Thank you so much. You've just very beautifully explained everything that concerns the topic, from school education to secondary education to higher education. You've touched all the points related to what should be done to the students, to the primary students, to the secondary students, to university students, how research should be conducted. We should respect the intellectual property rights. There should be proper training sessions for that as well. For teachers as well, there should be proper implementation of the policies. Teachers need to know what is the curriculum, how to implement it. There should be a hierarchy to check and balance on what is being done in schools, what is being taught, and to make it all uniform and and provide quality education. So it was really a wonderful session with you. You pretty much summed everything up. We thank you on behalf of Read Pakistan. I thank you a lot for
Thank
all of this
you.
knowledge that you shared with us. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so
ma'am,
much.
for
Thank you.
sparing time for us and sharing with us such wonderful knowledge. Thanks a lot. So, on
Thank
this
you.
note, we'd like to end our session, and inshallah, till next time, Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Thank you so much. Thank you.